Okay, everyone, thank you for joining. This is a happy moment for me to be back in front of this mic. I've been out for a little while, but I'm back. I did some traveling to the Holy Land and some speaking over there at different places. And this is an insight that came to me in the Holy Land. So a fantastic, exciting thought. And I'd like to share it tonight. Obviously, it's a Parsha class, so we're going to connect it to both last week's Torah portion, which I missed, sharing from this mic, Parshas Beshalach and Parshas Yisro together. And of course, we're going to talk about the unbelievable situation that's going on, the unbelievable events that are going on, which are completely abnormal. We all have to ask the question, how did we get here suddenly? How did the world suddenly flip on its head? How is it that suddenly we have a French Riviera in Gaza being spoken of? Like things that no one would even begin to even think of. No one would even mention it. It was like the worst thing that one can even say from their mouth, the possibility of the moving of the people of Gaza somewhere else and rebuilding Gaza, and then eventually it's going to be part of the great land of Israel, like God promised a whole bunch of times, that the entire land of Israel will belong to the Jewish people. Now, the fact that God promised so, and the fact that one day we know Moshiach will be here, and that's going to be the reality, because God promises happens, but how did it happen that now the leader, most powerful person in the world is saying so? And when the rest of the world is literally driving the rest of the world insane. Just today we have, just now, latest news out, Macron is saying, the way to fix the problem is not by relocating the people of Gaza and bringing them somewhere else. That can't be the way, because the way we've been dealing within the premise, within the box that we've been dealing with this problem for the last 75 years, 80 years, or whatever it is, it's been working out really well. The idea is that all these Arab countries and all the European countries and the American State Department and the White House and all these ideas that we kept on putting out on the table again and again, they've been working out really well. So if we try something new, if we're thinking out of the box, no, that can't be. Egypt is crying and saying, no way, Saudi Arabia is getting unnerved. But there is a new dream on the table. And like no one saw this coming, that out of all that suddenly the President of the United States, unfazed, unimpressed, unmoved by all the pushback he absolutely knows he's going to get, and yet it looks like he's digging his heels in. See, last week when he said it, it was like, wow, but you kind of didn't know. Maybe he was just playing around with the thought. But it looks like he's digging his heels in. And we know that President Trump, when he gets a craze in his head, he generally sees it through. Now, when that craze in his head is actually consistent with biblical prophecy, when we are actually told that that's what's going to happen, then it's really exciting to see it manifest and happen and come down. So we know this is what's going to happen. It's going in that direction. Is there going to be pushback? Is there going to be a lot of mudslinging? Is there going to be a lot of opposition? Who cares? Trump said he's going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Everybody stated that if you dare do that, it's World War III. And embassy was moved to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was declared the eternal Jewish capital. Now, it was declared the eternal Jewish capital by God, but that it should be declared so by the United States. And it is now fact so. That's it, with the UN, whatever it is, it's not changing. Jerusalem is the capital, even meaning from the international recognition, at least in as much as the United States is concerned. Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the Jewish people because of one person. At least I'm saying from from the world's perspective, not from biblical perspective, but from world's perspective, it's Donald Trump in his first term made that move, bold move, and actually it didn't lead to any war, it didn't lead to any problems. If anything, it advanced peace. And how do we see it advanced peace? Because everybody said it's going to set the Arab world, it's going to set the entire Middle East on fire. And instead, guess what grew out of it? We had the Abraham Accords. Could you believe that? And country after country, UAE and the other one over there, I forgot already, and even Sudan and Morocco lined up and signed up, and all the countries. And peace was breaking out in the Middle East faster than anybody can even imagine. Country after country was joining on to the Abraham Accords. And if not for the 2020 election, which we'll find out if Biden actually won the election. We'll find out, because we're going to be finding out a whole lot of things right now. Because there's another messianic prophecy coming into Revelation right now, which it says that in the land of Edom, all secrets will be exposed. It says in the prophecy of, what's his name? The prophecy of Ovadia, very important prophet, talking about the fall of Edom and the end of time. And it says that, Ech nibu matspinav. How is it that all the hidden secrets were suddenly exposed? And what's taking place in Washington? It's exactly that. And it's the tip of the iceberg. So what we are going to find out, who knows? We might even find out that Trump was president in 2021, 22, 23, 24. Let's see. Let's see where this is going. Because there's a whole lot of suppression of things that were hidden and it's driving everybody crazy, but that's good. Good for him. Good for him. If there's been cheating and lying and deception, let it all be revealed. But in any case, back to what we were saying, all the Arab countries were signing up, so many of them were signing up for peace, precisely after Trump had the boldness to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. So I have a good feeling that when he has an idea and he sets his mind to it, and you know about him, he's like really funny, because when he gets an idea and it's really out of the box and it really upsets everybody, but he really starts liking it, he loves his own ideas. And truth is, in this case, I believe that he sincerely knows that this is the only solution, because he knows that all the other solutions and ideas, which are dead bent of keeping the Palestinian people in Gaza and keeping the Palestinian people in the West Bank, although the kind of excuse for that is that and creating a two-state solution, because leaving it status quo means war without an end. That's what it means. So the solution would be making a two-state solution and hoping that the Palestinians will behave. We all know that the Palestinians are not going to accept a two-state solution without Jerusalem as its capital, and without the Temple Mount in the old Jerusalem. And we know that that's never ever going to happen, because Israel would never allow that to happen. So we know that the two-state solution is absolutely impossible. It's not going to be, both from a rational point of view and especially from a biblical point of view. It is not going to be. And I believe that Trump, in addition to knowing the world from down, also knows the biblical prophecy, and also in his heart of heart knows that the Jewish people are the ones who are the rightful owners over the state of Israel, over the land of Israel, and over Jerusalem in its entirety. So what he is saying is, so what's the other? So what? Either we keep the Palestinians in Gaza and we keep them exactly in their miserable state, and the reason why we want to keep them in the trenches, so that we can keep this war on Israel and keep the bloodshed going and keep the Jewish people suffering, and obviously when the Jewish people will suffer, it will cause the Palestinians to suffer as well, and so on and so forth, and this will be a never-ending cycle of violence and death. and many, many, many of the people, at least in the Arab world, and many of its supporters, anti-Semitic supporters across the world, consciously or subconsciously, would like this to continue so that the Jewish people can suffer forever and ever and ever. And that's why it's like dead bent on keeping the Palestinians in Gaza, in that, as he calls it, a hellhole, and for forever and ever keeping this bloodshed flowing. I think President Trump knows that. I think he also knows he has 4 years now in office, and if he is going to emerge as, historically, as the person who changed the world, and as he decided that he wants to be known as a man of peace, and if he's going to bring peace to the Middle East in a real way, it's only going to come by revealing the truth. The truth is the Jewish people are the owners of that land. The Palestinians could move somewhere else, and they will move somewhere else. And Trump is saying that for most of that population, if you give them a beautiful new place to live, and they have a nice complexes, they have nice homes, maybe you'll add a little financial stipend to it, and they'll be giving comfortable places to live, they might find out that they will take that instead of eternally living in bloodshed and in suffering. Yes, there's no question that for many of the Palestinian people, the religious aspect of that, the propaganda that has been kind of imbued in them deeply, 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 that it's their life's goals, mission to fight for that land and to kill and to murder as many Jews as they can in doing so. And that's the thing. Yes, I'm sure there's a lot of that as well. But let's understand something. Since it's fundamentally not true, which means since they're fighting for something that's a lie, not the truth, that means that their connection to it is not real. And if their connection to it is not real, as much as we think that the fanaticism will never end, it will end. And it will end as soon as someone creates a true and beautiful possibility for them to start their lives in a place with a dreams of tomorrow that might be very prosperous for them. And that's what I think President Trump is thinking, and that's where he knows there's a certain truth, and he knows that he's fed up with the continuous, what we might call, perpetuation of lies. The rest of the world, or so much of the world, still wants to continue lying, and he's done with lies. And I think he's done with lies in the United States of America. He's done with cover-ups. He's done with deceptions. He's done with the foolishness of pretending certain realities when they don't exist, both in America. He's done with pretending that men can be women and women can be men. It's like, come on, guys, we are done with this. It's over. Like, you know, cut through the, whatever, I don't want to say what really should be said, because sometimes when it comes to ridiculous arguments, you have to call a spade a spade. So you really, really need to cut through all that absolute falsehoods and lies. And he's someone who's done with it. And guess what? People are willing and ready and able and are waiting for a leader who is going to tell them the truth. And he in as much is saying this truth. And the truth is regarding the ridiculous spell. And it's amazing when you see, but here's what you're watching. What you're watching is that when it comes to Yetzer Hara, when it comes to evil inclination is a fad. Evil inclination is it's a puff of smoke. It creates a what we might call what do they call it? Not a facade, a mirage. And you see that as long as it's in power, it can literally make everybody crazy. So if you watched an entire world going along with this woke insanity and progressiveness, that was the kind of, and no one can dare say anything against it. If you dare suggest something against this super lie and the super deception, you know, you're a bigot, a racist, a sexist, a this, a that. Comes one person and says, we had enough. And you know what happens is you have to poke the lie with a needle, and then it busts. And it burst. And most of the country is saying, what are you, insane? We had enough of that. But no one had the courage to do it. One person comes and does it, and everybody's on the bandwagon. So just like it is regarding that lie, all these lies are interconnected one with each other. Because they're all an expression of that which is covers on truth and covers on God. And once you start busting those lies, all these lies go pop, 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 pop. And he is now clearly busting and poking directly at the biggest lie that has been perpetuated and constantly said again and again and again and again about that there is a right to the land of Israel by other peoples, and it's genuinely wrong, because as we know that God is the one who created the world. God gave Israel to the Jewish people, and that's the way it is, and humanity knows that in their heart of hearts. As much as people might scream and shout and bang their heads in the walls oppositely, it is a lie, it is not true, and we need someone like him who right now is telling the truth. And I think this is where it's coming from. And as a result of that, he came up with this, but he kind of pulled it out of left field last week when the visit of Netanyahu came to visit him. Out of left field, he suddenly says that the United States is going to take possession of Gaza, and we're going to move the Palestinians somewhere else. We're rebuilding the place. Now, to many Jews, and to many religious Jews, and to many Hasidic Jews, there was something over here that caught us off guard. And it caught me off guard as well. Because if the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people, how is Trump going to, what's America doing there? And why is Trump saying that this is going to belong to the United States of America? When Gaza, which should be part of Israel, should belong to the Jewish people, how is America getting a slice in the pie? So there are those who will say, well, Trump sees this as a business opportunity. He'll build some beautiful hotels over there. He'll have some golf courses over there. And this is ultimately will create for his own family and for whatever, I don't know for who exactly, this great business opportunity and so on and so forth. But in that sense, it would kind of not be consistent with the ultimate ideal that the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people and it doesn't belong to the United States of America. So here's where there's a little bewilderment, and here's a little bit of a shock, and here's a little bit of a question. Is there anything to say about the fact that America is the one that takes a hold of Gaza? And what's its purpose in doing so? Okay? So this is what I'd like to address now. So one thing is for sure. Everything was flipped over on its head just in the past week. In the past week, everything. Because now you realize everybody, there's like something else that's out there, an idea that's out there that others need to refute. In other words, all the Arab countries and all the countries in the world are in defense mode. They're no more in offense. Now they're defending why and trying to argue why his plan is not a good plan. But he changed the narrative in 1 second. And he's so insistent on it. This is beautiful. But the question is, do we have any source? So let me put it this way. To me, it's clear, without a question, that this is the messianic process unfolding. What we are watching is, I named this class, at least in the subtitle, Moshiach in the Driver's Seat, Part 2, because we had that name a couple of weeks ago. And this is going to run along the theme of that class. So this is Part 2. There's no question that this is a part of Moshiach rearranging and setting things up the way Moshiach likes it. And Trump is not Moshiach, but Trump is an instrument in Moshiach's hand to get things done according to how the world needs to be at the time of Moshiach's arrival. So there is no question in my mind that is what is going on. Now the question, however, is is there any biblical or Torah source that would kind of suggest that America, let's say America is somewhat related to Edom and to Esau, right? Because they definitely are. It's the question is the main Edom. All kinds of different discussions today on YouTube. Who is Edom and so on and so forth. There is very, very much reason to believe that the final manifestation of Edom is the United States of America, and that Trump is a reincarnation of Esau, as we discussed in many, many other classes before us. Is there any indication from any biblical source or from any rabbinic source or from any Torah source, midrashic source or whatever it is, that the way the Jewish people are going to get Gaza is going to be via and through their big brother Esau? And what I would like to show today is a stunning talk that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave 33 years ago on Parshas Bishalach, which is the exact week that this event took place. The event happened last week, during the week when we were reading the Torah portion of Bishalach. When we say the event was the first time when he met with Netanyahu and he had that press conference and when he dropped that bomb that's literally going to rearrange and completely change the face of the world. That's what I'm saying. I have no question that what he did last week during Netanyahu's meeting with him is historic. What it means historic, it's going to change the course of history forever and ever. When did it happen? It happened, what was it, Tuesday? I think Monday or Tuesday. I think Tuesday. Tuesday, Parshat Bishalach. So 33 years ago, on Parshas Bishalach, was the last time, 33 years ago, 1992, was the last year the Lubavitcher Rebbe was talking week after week, giving his talks. So a few weeks after this talk, the Rebbe had a stroke. So these are from the last few talks. Let me see, Bishalach, Yisro. There's some in the middle of the week, but let's just give you how much Bishalach, in terms of weeks. Bishalach, Yisro, Mishpatim, Teruma, Tetzaveh, Kisisa, Vayakel. This is within the last 7 talks. It's less than 2 months before the Rebbe had his stroke, and we didn't hear the Rebbe talk anymore. But during these, now, to me, without a question, the Rebbe during his entire leadership would speak and was speaking prophecy. And the Rebbe himself spoke of the fact that prophecy returns before Moshiach comes, and that his father-in-law and himself included, because the Rebbe included himself and his father-in-law, is the fulfillment of the return of prophecy before Moshiach comes. And therefore, whatever the Rebbe spoke was and contains within it prophetic quality and many prophecies. Included in them, and mostly in them, was the talks the Rebbe gave the last years, when the Rebbe himself describes. It's amazing. The last 4 years from 1988, from 1988, 1990, 1989, 1990, and 1991, and the last 5 years. Last 5 years of the Rebbe talking, the Rebbe himself refers to that period as a much higher level of godly infusion that the Rebbe was bringing to the world. The Rebbe himself divided his leadership, his period of communication with the world and with the Jewish world in teaching Torah into real 3 segments. The period of time of his father-in-law's life, which is until 1950, from 1920 something till 1950. Although the Rebbe is not the leader, but the Rebbe was already in the world at that time. And kind of the up-and-coming leader of the Jewish people. He was in the bullpen, warming up, if you might say. 1950, his father-in-law passes away. 1951, the Rebbe takes over the mantle of leadership of Lubavitch. The Rebbe then sees that period of time as an upgrade and a higher level of what was going on from 1920 to 1950. Suddenly an increase in the godly revelation to the world. But the Rebbe says that that period ends in 1988. In 1988, the Rebbe himself spoke and says we're entering into kind of like pre-Messianic era. In a sense, saying we're entering into a whole new level of godly revelation concerning who? Concerning the entire world, concerning the Jewish people, concerning the Chabad movement, and concerning the leader of the Chabad movement, which is the Rebbe himself, in terms of the godly access that the Rebbe has and that the Rebbe is projecting and Wi-Fiing into the world, which is the infinite light. And therefore we can say, and not just say, but see, that from 1988, this Tafshem Mem Ches, the year 5748 in the Hebrew calendar, and then continuing on for the next 5 years, the Rebbe's talks are extra prophetic and extra powerful and extra devoted to the messianic process, which means Moshiach unfolding in the world. From within that section of talks itself, the most incredible, most heightened, the most intense ones are after when the Rebbe shared with us that he's giving us the key to bring the redemption. And that happened in 1991, towards the end of the year, Passover time, 1991, in April of 1991. And at that time, the Rebbe then said, hey, I'm handing it over to each and every one of you. And he upgraded his talks. And those talks are called Dvar Malchus. And in those talks, if you learn it well, you see absolutely stunning prophecy. And I would like to share that literally the talk and the Torah, the teaching, the Rebbe gave in the Parsha of Parshas Bishalach, 33 years before this event happened last week in the White House, again, looks to me, and I'm just going to share the information and give my slant on it. And then obviously it's up to everyone to decide if... I'm not saying clearly that there is a clear, open, without a questionable prophecy that the Rebbe said that Donald Trump is going to take Gaza for the United States of America and then it's going to pass on to Israel. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when you listen to the ideas that he's promoting and stating, it matches really well with what happened. So much so that it's, to me, it almost says so explicitly in the talk. Or, if you asked me then if this is what would happen, I would say I wouldn't be thinking so. But now that it's going down this way, I see it in the words. And I'd like to share it tonight in this, I believe, very, very interesting class. And everybody, you can be your own judge and decide for yourself what you want to believe, and that's great. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the Rebbe at that time, in 1992, in the winter of 1992, at this junction exactly, at this week's Torah portion, Parshas Bishalach, the Rebbe puts the stick shift on high gear, puts the pedal to the metal on the gas pedal, and the Rebbe shifts into an enormous speed in which he kind of jolts forward and starts speaking about the particular power that is the power of Moshiach in the world. The Rebbe starts a series of 3 major talks, which began that week, Bishalach, then continues in this week's Torah portion, Parshas Yisro, and continues in another talk, which is not on one of the Parshiot, but Parshas, when the Rebbe gave a talk, printed regarding his saintly wife's yahrzeit on the 22nd day of Shvat. It's called Kuntris B'cha Yevarech Yisrael. It was a kuntris, it was a particular, what's it called again, pamphlet. And it could be, I'm not sure if the Rebbe handed it out, not sure. I know he did give something out for all the people for hours on his wife's yard site. Could be this talk was even included in it. Again, I didn't do my research. I wasn't planning to say that tonight, and therefore I'm sorry for the lack of not bringing you that information. But I know there was a contrast given out, and it could be even that this particular talk that I'm referring to, which was the third talk, is it's part of the trial. Let's call it the trial. 3 talks. And what's the 3 talks? In all these 3 talks, the theme evolves around one idea. And it goes deeper and deeper, and it goes mind-blowing deeper. But the theme of it is the power and the significance of number 11. Now, those of you who listen to my classes know that everything I've been speaking about, especially in the last quite a bit of time, is all about this particular secret of number 11, based on these 3 talks of the Rebbe, where the Rebbe talks about number 11. Now, why was the Rebbe talking about number 11? Because the Rebbe was placing himself right in the midst of this entire godly era that is now coming to the world. Moshiach's revelation to the world, the Rebbe placed himself right in the eye of the storm. Basically saying that all this emanation, all this powerful light that you're seeing is the energy of number 11. And the Rebbe, in a very modest way, said, I am number 11. He didn't say it in the words, I am number 11. He said it in, if you learn, and again, everybody, you're all free to take the book, to take the talks. It's all online. It's all printed. You can read them for yourself, so you don't have to believe one word that I am saying. But I'm talking and telling you that there is absolutely no question. And you're learning these talks. The Rebbe is talking about himself. He's talking about number 11. Many times he makes mention to himself as number 11, just not saying I. He's speaking about the last and final manifestation of the Nasi, of the leader of the Jewish people, which is the leader of the generation today, he says, which is the last generation of exile and the first generation of redemption. And that the leader's life has number 11 written all over it. What does that mean? So we've discussed this in earlier classes. The previous Chabad Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, was the 6th Rebbe of Chabad, the 8th Rebbe of the general Hasidic dynasty or Hasidic tree, in as much as Chabad is concerned. Hasidism is not only Chabad. Hasidism branched off into many Hasidic different branches. But the Chabad one has first 2 general leaders, which are the leaders of all of the Hasidic world. And then there is the particular brand called Lubavitch Chabad. And that has 7 leaders. The previous Rebbe was number 6. So the Rebbe explains at great length that the previous Rebbe, his energy is the energy of number 10. What's about it in number 10? Number 10, now let me first for one moment explain what number 10 is. According to the Rebbe, number 10 is, in holiness, number 10 represents the sum, totality, and completion and perfection of the entire creative order, or the entire cosmic order. The entire cosmos and the entire, including the godly force that creates the world, is all systemized and in a paradigm of 10. As we know that God created the world in 10 utterances. We also know that even when God gave the Torah, He gave the Torah in 10 commandments. And that's because God emanates to the world through 10 divine attributes. So that means even God, when He systemizes Himself into a certain framework, when God projects Himself into a certain definitive state so that He can be in a relationship with the world, mostly the concept called God being called a man, the perfection of that man, of that human, is number 10. How does 10 happen? 3 intellectual powers, 7 emotional powers. That's the divine structure. And that's how God creates the world. And therefore, in the end of time, when the Jewish people, who are the inner lifeline of creation, do their work and complete the work in terms of downloading and elevating and refining and purifying and rectifying all of existence, readying it for Moshiach. And when we reach perfection, when we finish the job, that is number 10. We've now aligned all of existence with its divine source. And that's why 10 is holy. The Rebbe says that the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, his name starts with a Yud, Yosef Yitzchak. His first name starts with a Yud. His second name starts with a Yud. And everything about him is 10. He was born in the year of 10. In the year, as we said, in the year 18... he was born in the year 1880, not 1880, 1880. He became Rebbe in a 10 year, meaning in a year that completes 10, which is 1920. And his life was a series of, his leadership was a series of 3 sets of 10. And he passes away in the Hebrew year 5710 on the 10th day of Shvat. So the Rebbe says that's not random. That's because this is who he is. And that's the reason why when the previous Rebbe was nearing closer to the end of his life, he declared that we're ready for Mashiach. Because he not he himself, but he, as the leader of the Jewish people, and as the leader of the Jewish people at the end time of history, brought through his self-sacrifice and through his great work, the work of the Jewish people to its conclusion. So everything is rectified. So what did the previous Rebbe say? La'alta l'tshuva, li'alta l'giyula. If we do, the only thing that's still missing is that we should do tshuva, which means we should have a moment of repentance. And as soon as we repent, the redemption will be here. Now, how can he say la'alta suddenly? Well, I mean, and it was getting many people, it unnerved many other rabbis. Many people got a little uncomfortable. They were saying Lubavitch is getting crazy. Like, what's with this Mashiach frenzy? And what is he taking? La'alta l'tshuva, li'alta l'giyula instantly. So based on what the Rebbe is saying, we understand it was something fundamental. It wasn't just, the Friediger Rebbe wasn't just inspired and said, you know what, let's make a good push for it now. Let's inspire everybody. Let's do tshuva. The Holocaust, he started saying it during the Holocaust. It's let's do tshuva. The previous Rebbe understood where the world was. He has inside information. He has access to God's computer. He takes a look and he sees things from the inside and he sees the work was done. The world is rectified. We're ready for Mashiach. But since Mashiach can't come without redemption, without repentance or return to God, as it says in the Talmud, the Rambam brings it, En Yisrael Negal and Elo b'tshuva. The Jewish people will not be redeemed only when they do tshuva. Tshuva means even after we finish the rectification, we still need to do tshuva, as we'll soon see why. So once there is tshuva, and there is repentance, we'll have the redemption immediately. The reason he made that announcement was because all the work was done. So the Rebbe now says, okay, so now once the previous Rebbe passed away and the mantle of leadership goes on to the next leader is no more contained and constrained within the limitations of number 10. The next leader transmits and brings into the world a energy and a life force that's above and beyond the system. And that's number 11. Which in other words means God himself. Because all that we spoke about earlier of number 10 and the system, it's all God's projection. God projects himself into the state, he, so to speak, modifies himself into a limited being of 10. But ultimately, the purpose of creation is not to be in a relationship with the modified projection of God, but rather to be in a relationship with God Almighty himself. And that's why he's at 11. God Almighty himself doesn't have features. He's above all these features, doesn't have numbers. No, what does number 11 mean? Number 11 means the number 1 that's above the 10. And the number 1 that's above the 10, not in a manner in which he ignores the 10, because if God, who is a number 1 above the 10, ignores the 10, then all you have is 1, and God is back to his singular self, and you don't have a fusion, you don't have a marriage between God and the world. The purpose over here is a fusion. The purpose over here is a unification between God and the world. So when God imbues, God himself moves into the world, when he himself downloads his infinity, his boundlessness, his awesome endlessness, his non-descriptive self into the descripted world, into the descriptions, into the limitations, into the boundaries, by first descending into the 10 Commandments, into the structure of Torah. So what God first does is he first encloses himself into the 10 Commandments. Or let's put it this way. God first encloses himself into the 10 Sefirot, 10 attributes. And in the 10 attributes, through and via the 10 attributes, into the 10 Commandments. And through the 10 Commandments, into the 10 utterances, which are the life force of creation. Through that, God now is infused in the world. That's number 11. The one above, unified with all of existence. So the Rebbe says, you know when that happened already? You know when that great light came to the world? On the 11th day of the 11th month of the 11th year, let's put it, on the 11th day of the 11th month of the 11th year. Which year? 1951. 5711, that's the year. It was a year of an hour century, according to the Hebrew calendar. According to the Hebrew calendar, the new century began in the year 5700 to creation, which is, sadly, the century opened up with the biggest darkness ever, the Holocaust. So in 1940 is when we hit the last century, the century in which the revelation of Moshiach is going to come about. The ultimate godly light is going to come to the world. So 11 years into that century, on the 11th month, on the 11th day, the download happened. And the Rebbe doesn't say this, but I'll add this, and Hasidim added this. It was also the 11th hour. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of the 11th year, number 11 was revealed in the world. And this is what the Rebbe is speaking of. And who is number 11? The Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was born on the 11th day of the month of redemption. He was born in the first month, the month of Nisan. The 11th day of the month, Yud Aleph Nisan, is the birthday of the Rebbe. It's hinted to in Psalms, in Tehillim, where God has a dialogue with Moshiach. Chapter 2, Psalm number 2. Which verse? I don't have a Tehillim in front of me, but you can look it up somewhere in chapter 2. Psalm number 2, not too hard, not too long of a psalm. God says to Moshiach, says to the ultimate Redeemer, Ani b'ni ata, you are my child. Ani hayom yelediticha. Today I gave birth to you. Today is your birthday. The word Ani is an acronym. Yud Aleph Nisan. The 11th day of Nisan it stands for. Is Hayom. That's the day yelediticha I gave birth to you. That's the day of Mashiach's birthing into the world. And then Hashem says, Sha'al memenu, ask of me whatever you want, ve'etena, and I will give you. Cool. So, the Rebbe is born on the 11th day, but again, he's 48 years old when he assumes the mantle of leadership in Lubavitch. 47 or 48, I think 40, maybe it was, he was still 47, he was in his 48th year. But which day of the year was it? The day that the Rebbe said the Basi Legani Achoisi Kalo, which was the introductory discourse in which the Rebbe through that became Chabad, the leader of Chabad, and consequentially the leader of world Jewry. When did he say it? He said it on the 11th day of the 11th month, on the 11th hour. 10:40 is when the Rebbe started. That's in the 11th hour, 10:40 p.m. The 11th hour the 11th day, the 11th month, which the month of Shvat is the 11th month, the 11th year, 57, 11 of the century. So really, the powerful lights of infinity, of Moshiach, the world is marinating in number 11 light. Albeit no one knows it. Albeit the rest, life goes on as usual. But a whole new potential has been unleashed in the world. That's what the Rebbe is saying in all these talks. A new potential has been released in the world. The potential of what is that? The potential coming from God's very self. Hashem's infinity. And therefore we are now imbued with powers to do impossible things. And part of that is to bring Judaism to every corner of the world. In other words, Judaism will not have boundaries anymore. Till now, Judaism, holiness and godliness, as long as we are within the system of number 10, there are certain regulations and rules and limitations and boundaries of where Judaism can thrive, where it can be successful. But it has a certain sense, a certain ghetto to it, a certain particular place where it can be. It needs to be within these borders. The concept of number 11 is Ein Sof, the infinite. And that's exactly what the Rebbe did over the next 40 years. From 1951 till 1991, which is a 40-year period, the Rebbe went and he brought the Jewish people who were just slaughtered in the Holocaust, broken and barely able to kind of reconstruct themselves in a defensive manner, hiding and uncomfortable with their own existence because so scared of the rest of the world. The Rebbe kind of picked up the Jewish people, gave them a tremendous sense of pride, not to hide their Judaism, to be very bold and strong and go out in the entire world. Sent his boys and girls out across the entire world to set up Jewish communities everywhere and to reach every Jew across the globe, to get every Jew to connect to his or her to his or her ancestral heritage, which is the Torah and the mitzvot and the unique godly connection. The Rebbe wasn't satisfied with that, and the Rebbe wanted us, Chabad Hasidim, to begin to teach the entire world the 7 Noahide laws, which are the connection that all of humanity has with God, going to be manifest and revealed and fully applied and fully actualized and fully observed in the time of Moshiach. That's number 11. So where am I going with this? The Rebbe explains, so listen closely. The Rebbe explains that in those 3 talks, beginning with the Parshas Beshalach, last week's Torah portion, the week that this incredible announcement regarding Gaza came about. Now watch this. Now what does it have to do with Gaza? This is stunning. Just bear with me. Okay, so that week, the following week, and then in another talk, 3 talks. And we always know in Torah, when something happens 3 times, it becomes established in an absolute strong way, as the verse says, Chut HaMeshulash, a thread, a rope that has three ropes in it, 3 strands in it. You can't. It's very hard to disconnect that rope. So 3 is considered an established. So the Rebbe hammered it in 3 times to explain to us week after week after week the significance of number 11. Okay. Now, in his first talk, which is Parshas Beshalach, and let me be clear, is that the Rebbe hinted to these ideas and to these concepts already earlier in his leadership. There are sparkle talks about number 11 and number 10, referencing his father-in-law and referencing himself. All of this has been spoken earlier as well, but concentrated and in such a clear and direct manner we haven't had until these 3 weeks. And again, it's super significant because this is the time when the Rebbe I'm sure he had to know that he was going to be missing in action to the naked eye for a period of time. And he was empowering us and giving us everything we need to know that we should be able to do the work to actualize Moshiach in the world. So, in his first talk about number 11, he's talking about the Jewish people's journey in the desert, which begins last week in Parshas Beshalach, last week's Torah portion, in which it says when God, Vehi Beshalach Paro Esa'am, because let's go back to the beginning of last week's Torah portion. Pharaoh is the one who sends the people out. Paro releases the Jewish people from their exile. This is again after the 10 plagues. In a sense, we're after the 10 plagues, we're hitting number 11. Think about that. Because in Parshas Bo, the 10 plagues ended. And in Parshas Beshalach, it's after the 10 plagues. So what's happening? This is number 11. It's hinted to in the words, Vehi Beshalach Paro Esa'am, which according to mysticism, Pharaoh, who is a wicked monster, someone who bathes in Jewish blood, that this very Pharaoh is rooted spiritually in number 11, in a very, very, very high level. Again, the Rebbe does not talk about it that much in the talk, in this particular talk, but I'm mentioning it. He just hint to it. Pharaoh represents a level, when he brings the words of the Zohar, where all lights come from it. In other words, the 10 is already the projected lights of God. Paro is the level of Keter, the level of the crown, the level of number 11 that transcends all the lights that emanate from him. So Paro is number 11, and because it's after the 10 plagues, we've already gone through the revelation of number 10. Now we're already hitting on the revelation of God Almighty himself. So when it says Paro sends out the people, it's not referring to the wicked Pharaoh down here. It's referring to God empowering the Jewish people to go where are we going to. So here are these incredible ideas. We are going to the land of Israel. That's the objective. What's the land of Israel called? Eretz Yisrael. Now, when you write the word Eretz Yisrael, Eretz starts with an aleph. The acronym of Eretz Yisrael is Eretz starts with an aleph, and Yisrael starts with a yud. So you have the word yud aleph. Yud aleph is number 11. So Pharaoh is sending out the people. What that really means, the power that's pushing them. There's an incredible power that's pushing the Jewish people from exile to redemption, to their ultimate destiny, to where? To the land of Israel, which in the land of Israel is meant to be the home of God, the home of the Jewish people, which is going to be the home where the temple is going to stand, where God will manifest, which is number 11. So therefore, Eretz Yisrael itself, its acronym is Aleph Yud, which is Yud Aleph, which is number 11. And that's why the land is called, here. It's called Eretz Tova, it's called the good land, Urechava, and broad. The broad over here means broad without boundaries. It's the land of the infinite. It's the land of the Ein Sof. Now, interesting, bear with me for a moment. The Jewish people, the first thing they're going to do is Pharaoh is chasing them. Now, I'm making this up over here. Okay, please, I'm getting a little creative over here. While I'm speaking to you, this is coming to me right now. And the verse says that Pharaoh is chasing them. What that really means is this powerful force of number 11 is pushing them. They're being lifted by this powerful force of number 11. Now I'm going to give you the source that this actually, what do you mean? The Egyptians and Pharaoh, these are dark people. Yes, that's the physical manifestation as it's still unfolding in the world of concealment. But the real story behind it, what's really taking place, is the power of number 11, which is expressed in Pharaoh. Paro, which is, as we said earlier, where all lights come. What does the verse say? Uparoi hikriv. It says the Jewish people felt suddenly stuck by the sea because they felt that Paro was catching up. He was closing the distance. He was closing the gap. The Jewish people were going with families, with children. They were moving at a pretty slow pace. Pharaoh was coming with the chariots of Egypt. Horses. Egypt was known for its horses. Its entire, with the military vehicles, with the chariots of Egypt that were built sturdy and strong and meant to race through the desert, with the most selected, as it says, 600 of the chosen chariots, the chosen chariots with the mighty horses. They were galloping, so they were closing the gap. They were closing in on the people. And as they were getting closer and closer, what does it say? Pari hikriv, and that's what. And the verse says, "Vayisu b'nei Yisrael esaneim." The Jewish people lifted their eyes. Gevald. So the sages say, "Oh, this is so good. Thank God." See, I didn't even know how good this will get. So it says, the sages say, what does it mean? It should have said upare karav. Pare karav means para. If it would have been linguistically correct, it should have say paro karav. Paro came close. It says upare hikriv. Hikriv means he brought someone else close. So the sages say he brought the Jewish people close to their Father in heaven. Because it's because when you have Pharaoh with a whole bunch of Egyptians with clinging swords, breathing down your back, at that moment you call out to God. So the Jewish people cried out to God for help. That's the simple meaning of the sages. The deeper meaning, based on what we're learning. Until that moment, we were even our spirituality, even our connection to God that the Jewish people had, even when they were in Egypt, was all within the construct of number 10. Paro hikriv means that Paro lifted them up to number 11. That's redemption. That's the Ein Sof. So this enormous Pharaoh power, which is the power of the infinite. Now we're going to see soon, this is amazing. I mean, this is so incredible. That the forces of darkness and evil are mysteriously plugged into number 11, to the transcendental elements of God that the Jewish people don't have access to on their own. But the Jewish people are meant to connect them. And are meant to bring it into the world for the rest of humanity to experience. Because this that we say that evil is connected to that level, evil is connected to that level in a way that is it's connected, it empowers the forces of evil, but it's not beneficial. It's not beneficial to evil, it's not beneficial to anybody. It's just a force it's like a force of craziness that can bring a craze to the world, like we spoke in the beginning of the class, how the entire world can be crazy with wokeness, which is an absolute insanity, and yet everybody can be crazy with it. That's coming from number 11, but that's not a good 11. That's a misuse of an energy. But the reason there can even be such a misuse is because of this transcendental place. So again, Israel, the Jewish people who are meant to harness God's powers in a constructive way for humanity, is only connected to number 10. We are limited within the construct of number 10. Number 11 is outside of our capacity. The forces of evil, while they're evil, are mysteriously empowered by a power that that they're connected to in a non-constructive manner, that empowers and enables the worst atrocities to happen. A Holocaust, God forbid, the worst type of things. Because if the number 11 energies come down in the wrong way, they bring enormous infinite power to darkness. So this is going to be the trick of everything we're going to be speaking about over here. The combination and the unification of the constructive forces with the destructive forces. Where the constructive forces are going to elevate the disruptive forces or the destructive forces, and take the spark that's in them, the spark of number 11, and elevate themselves into a relationship with number 11, into a relationship with the Ein Sof. So here's where you're watching that in play. Pharaoh is chasing after the Jewish people, pushing them up to number 11, because that's where Pharaoh really comes from number 11, lifting them up into number 11. And from number 11, you know what happens? The sea splits from number 11. Ruach Kadem Aza, powerful eastern wind is blowing all night long. Baku Amayim, the water splits open. And when the water splits open, the Jewish people, what is the first, and they go into the sea, then the Egyptians come running after them, and they drown in the sea. Because evil, you see, once number 11 reveals itself in a positive manner, evil drowns in it. It's destroyed by it. It can't. Once the Jewish people tap that energy of number 11, it takes it away from evil, and evil becomes completely obliterated with that light. So what do the Jewish people do as soon as they come out on the other side? They sing. They have a vision. They have an incredible prophetic vision. They see ultimate reality. They see the future. They see all of existence. They see to the very end. They see our generation. They see where we're standing here right now today. They're seeing the final moments of history. And they sing. And when they sing, how does the song begin? Az Yashir Moshe. Then they sing. Please hear it before I say it. Please. Az Yashir. Az starts with an Aleph. Yashir starts with a Yud. Az Yashir, number 11. Then they're singing. Because when number 11 is revealed inside our soul, we sing. We sing. Boy, do we sing. And that's interesting why Parshas Beshalach, which is all about the revelation of number 11, the transcendental light of God, is called Shabbos Shira, the Shabbos of song. Because when we're privy to the energy that's above and beyond creation, it lifts us up universally into a song, into an infinite song. So again, we're going to the land of Israel, where we're going to settle number 11 down. We're going to bring it down permanently, which the land of Israel is called Eretz Yisrael, which is Yud Aleph, number 11. When we sing the song, Az Yashir, with the vision of the land of Israel, that song is sung with, the opening letters of that song is an Aleph and a Yud, indicating number 11. And again, what does number 11 mean? The singular one permeating our entire consciousness, permeating the entire structure and the entire system of 10. Our fusion with God Almighty Himself. That's number 11. Okay. Now, that's already so good. What does it have to do with the land of the Philistines? So the Rebbe says, and he drops over here an incredible idea. Bear with me. In the beginning of the parsha it says, Vayhi b'shalach paro esa'am. It was when Paros, this is again in Exodus, Shemos, chapter 13, verse 17. B'shalach paro esa'am, when Pharaoh sends out the people. It says, V'loi nochem elokim, God did not take them, derech eretz pelishtim. God did not take them through the land of the Philistines. Ki karevu, that way was the closer way. So when you look on maps, I never understand maps. Google Maps, I just don't get it. Google Maps, Waze, I don't know. Waze, I don't know if Waze does it, but Google Maps does it. I like using Google. I used to use Waze, but I don't know. Anyways, Google Maps. So when you put it in, it gives you, tells you, 57 minutes to your drive, right? To wherever you're going. And then it says, it gives you an option. You can go this way too. It's an extra, adds 22 minutes to your drive. So who in the world would want to go for an extra 22 minutes? Like, why do they even give you the options on the longer way? You have the shorter way. Unless you're much too early for your meeting, you don't have what to do. Okay, so you want to drive around the countryside, or you want to sit an extra 20 minutes in traffic, you can go that way. But it's funny, no? Does anybody have an explanation why they give you? I understand they give you sometimes shorter routes. These are great options. But why do they give you the longer routes? I don't know. In any case, that's what it says over here. The verses say, the shortest way to go from from Egypt, from Ramses, where the Jewish people were, to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of it, would have been through the land of the Philistines. Kikarevu, that's the long way. But the verse says, hear this, God did not take them that way. God did not take them through the shortcut. Kiyamer Elokim, God says, maybe the people will have reconsider if they'll see a war. That will be a difficult that will be a difficult way to go. I'm getting so much insight while I'm teaching today. It's incredible. I'm sorry if I'm scared I'm going to forget to say this later, so I'll say it already now. What this seems to be hinting to is that going through the land of the Philistines, by the way, which is going through Sinai and coming right through Gaza. So that way might scare the people. When they'll see the war, they'll return to Egypt. I wonder if there's deep, deep meaning over here about the wars of Gaza. The wars. This is what we're referring. When they will see a war, they will turn back. Is this referring to October 7th and everything that's going on now? I mean, it's probably talking to us an ancient story, but it's talking about not going through that way when you will see a war and you will turn to Egypt. Incredible. Okay, but let's not lose sight over here. There would have been a shortcut through the land of Pelishtim, but God does not go that. What instead? So the verse says, "Vayasav Elokim." God took them a roundabout way. That's the source for Google giving you the longer way. See, I knew that there must be a source. So the source for Google doing this is because Google is following God. Just like God did not take the short way, He gave them the longer way, so it must be that Google is also doing that, taking us the long way around. And which way is He taking them? He's taking them through the desert. Derech HaMidbar, the way of the desert, Yam Suf, towards the sea of reeds. Okay. What it's basically saying is there could have been a shortcut and God did not take them through the shortcut, He took them through the long way. So now buckle your seatbelts. Okay? The Rebbe brings a midrash. Oh, this is phenomenal. I'm telling you guys, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. There is a midrash. Again, the Rebbe at this point is wants to lay out to us to understand the Moshiach's energy in the world, which is number 11. Okay? Let's go out. So there's a midrash. This is the midrash in the beginning of Parshas Beshalach. On this verse, V'leinachem Elokim derech eretz Pelishtim, God did not take them to the land of Pelishtim. The midrash is Sif Yud Beis, or whatever it is, how you call the midrash, Yud Beis. V'leinachem, Hashem did not take them the shortcut. How do you like this? Mitzrayim le'eretz Yisrael, from Mitzrayim, from Egypt to the land of Israel. If we would go the shortcut, Yud Aleph Masa'is would be an 11-pronged journey. If God would take us that way, we would be able to do it with 11 stops. Okay, it's a long journey. They would have to stop. And then, because, they have to pitch their tents. They can't go day and night. They would pitch their tents. So it would be 11 stops. You would go, it would be part one of the journey, then you'd go the next stop. You go basically going through the Sinai desert. You're coming around, and you're going from Egypt, and then you're coming through the land of Pelishtim, which is going through the Gaza coast. But how long would that journey be? The journey would be, the Midrash says, 11 stops. So God did not take them that way. Ella, rather, Nasa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God carried them Derech HaMidbar, through the way of the desert, Mem Shana, for 40 years. So instead of 11 stops, which they could have probably done in 11 days, He schleps them around in the Midbar. He pulls them through the desert for 40 years. That's a pretty extra journey, no? 40 years instead of 7. You say a longer. I added earlier 22 minutes to the ride if you take the long route. Here, instead of going 11 days, they went 40 years. Shenemar. Now, what do we know? How do we know that the way through the land of Pelishtim is 11 stops? How do we know that? The Midrash derives it from a verse. So we're gonna change over here from Exodus, and we're gonna pick up Deuteronomy, Devarim, and we're gonna go to the first verse of Moshe, where Moshe is right in the beginning of Deuteronomy, right in the beginning of Devarim. Second verse. Pasuk Beis. The verse says these words: Achad asar yom mechorev, 11 days from Chorev. Simply, the verse is describing where Moshe was when he was admonishing the Jewish people. Deuteronomy begins with Moshe's speech before he passes away. The entire book of Deuteronomy is Moshe speaking to the Jewish people before he leaves the world. And it's telling you where he stood at that time. But the Rashi and all the say that this is not at all the place that he was standing. Over here, Moshe was hinting to many, many things he was speaking, and he was saying it all he was camouflaging. Rashi says, the commentaries say, he was camouflaging this, he was admonishing the Jewish people and camouflaging their sins that they had done in different places. He was rebuking them. And he didn't want to speak in the negative, cast the Jewish people in a negative light. So he hinted to it. But part of that was, as Rashi explains, was he mentions an 11-day journey. Achad asar yom, 11 days. So the simple meaning of that, of this number 11 mentioned over there, the simple meaning is that after, as Rashi and Achad asar yom me Chorev, 11 days from Chorev. What's Chorev? Chorev is another name for Mount Sinai, where the Jewish people received the Torah. So 11 days from Chorev means the Jewish people received the Torah and spent an entire year at Sinai. After that, they were ready and poised to go into the land. Now, the distance from the land of from Sinai until the point where they would be Kadesh Barnea, which was pretty close to the land of Israel, was 11 days. The Jewish people, however, made it shorter. In 3 days, they covered a distance of 11 days. So Moshe was trying to tell the Jewish people, there's an 11-day journey that God brought you in 3 days. And he was ready to take you into the land of Israel, but you messed up because that's where they sent spies. And I ended up having to pull you around 40 years in the desert. You delayed an extra 40 years, and the entire generation perished during those 40 years. But it was 11 days from Sinai till Kadesh Barnea. That's the simple meaning of it. I'm telling you the simple meaning. But now we're going to go to the Midrashic meaning. The Midrashic meaning is, of the Midrash by us, is that the Midrash says that this verse, Achad asar yom Chorev, 11 days from Chorev, is not referring to the 11 days from Sinai to into the land of Israel, that they could have gone a year later after they went out of Egypt, which they could have gone from Sinai to the land of Israel. And instead, but rather it's referring to the original route that they could have gone when they went out of Egypt, skipping Sinai altogether, and gone straight into the land of Israel would have been an 11-day journey. So the Midrash is borrowing this idea, Achad asar yom Chorev, and saying that this is the journey, the route that they could have taken if they would have gone through the land of the Philistines. Instead, he took them for 40 years. And how do we know that? Because right after it says 11 days, it says, Vayhi ba'arbaim shana. And the next verse it says, and it was in the 40th year. And now Moshe is talking to the people. Moshe is talking to the people after 40 years. And he's saying, well, we were so close. We were 11 days in, 11 days away. So again, what's happening? The Midrash is borrowing a passage from Deuteronomy and applying it over here to us in Parshas Beshalach regarding the journey that God could have taken them as soon as he went to Egypt to Israel, which would have been 11 days. So, geographically, technically, it seems a little confusing because it would seem like there is 2 times that they could have gone 11 days. Once they could have gone 11 days from Egypt directly to Israel. Now there's another 11 days. They went 11-day journey. They did it in 3 days, which was an 11-day journey from Sinai to Kadesh Barnea, which was the launching point from where they would have gone into the land of Israel, had he not later detoured them, derouted them, and took them around 40 years in the desert. So which one is 11 days? So for now, let's drop the geographic element. Let's drop the physical world altogether. Let's drop time and space altogether. Let's tap into the energy that's being said over here. The number 11 keeps on popping up again and again and again when we're going out of Egypt. The land of Israel is Eretz Yisrael, it's number 11. The song we're singing at the sea is Oz Yashir, which is Aleph Yud, is number 11. The route we could have taken from Egypt to the land of Israel is an 11 journey. And once we received the Torah, we were also then imbued with number 11, and we're ready to go this 11-day journey to the land of Israel. So what's this number 11 popping up everywhere? So the Rebbe explains that we have to recognize what's the objective of all of these events. What's the point of Sinai? What's the point of going out of Egypt? What's the point of going to the land of Israel? What's the point of everything? Everything. Its objective is to reach number 11. Its objective is to reach a fusion. Every element of our being to be saturated with God's light. With the infinite light. It's all about the connection. That's why it's an 11-day journey. It's going through all the levels until you hit what's the keter, the crown. Crown is number 11. But you're able to draw that crown down and unify it with your being. So if that's the case, why did God not take them through the 11-day journey? If the objective is number 11, go through number 11. Why is he not taking them through the land of 11? Instead, he takes them through a 40-year journey in the desert. So, the easy answer, the answer that most of us would give if we weren't the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which we're not, is we futched. We messed it up. That's it, because we always mess up. Because every time we're given a chance, we ruin it again and again and again. God forbid. So it's 40 years. We ended up with 40 years. It should have been 11 days. It's 40 years. The Rebbe rejects that explanation completely. Because the Rebbe says the Medrash is not talking about negative over here. It's not like saying, ooh, they misbehaved. This Medrash, from everything else that says around it, the Rebbe says, implies that we're not talking about a sin. God purposely did not take them through the 11-day journey directly into the land of Israel. He purposely took them through a 40-year journey. Hey, so what happened with number 11? We're forsaking number 11? We're going on a 40-year journey, so we dropped 11. Isn't 11 so important? No, the Rebbe says. 11 is everything. He's giving them the 11-day journey in a 40-year journey. It's not like, okay, we can't do the number 11. No, we're going to do the number 11, but we're going to do it in a 40-year journey instead of in an 11-day journey. And what are we going to get after the 40 years? We're going to get number 11. And we're going to get it in a much better way. Because we're going to get the number 11 through the 40. And when we get 11 through 40, it is ours for keeps. If we get 11 not through number 40, in other words, if God takes us through the 11-day journey directly into the land of Israel, through the land of the Philistines, if he takes us right through the whole thing, through the shortcut, we would be swimming in number 11, and it would never be ours. Because it would have been a gift that would be given to us. And the gift, since it wouldn't come through our labor, it wouldn't come through our work, it wouldn't hold. And even if it would hold, we would always feel separated from it. It would never be comfortable. It would never be who we are and what we are. For it to become us, to be one with us, we need to absorb it. To absorb it takes 40 years. Why? And look how the Rebbe learns that. Listen to the words of the Medrash. The Rebbe says, that the 11-day journey, Yud Aleph Masoyas, is the journey. Hashem, from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael's Yud Aleph Masoyas is 11 journeys. So V'loi Nacham, God didn't take them that way. Elenasam HaKadosh Baruch Hu derech HaMidbar Mem Shana. Hashem took them through the Midbar 40 years. Shanamar Achadasa Yoim Mechorev, 11 days from Chorev. V'achakach Vahibar Bam Shana, then it was in the 40th year. So what does that mean? And the words the Rebbe uses, what he did was an 11-day journey. He gave them the 11-day journey in the 40 years. And how do you, and to further, how do we know that in the end of the 40 years we achieved number 11? Maybe the moment we didn't go that journey, God said, you guys are not ready for that, so forget about it. Scrap the whole plan. We're not doing number 11. We're going to hang around number 10. We're going to stay within the construct of limited existence. We're never going to number 11. You guys forget about it. Can't do it. I would love to do it, but we can't do it. How do we know that we're still, plan A is still there? We're still going in the 11-day journey. It's just that he's taking us around the 40 years. How do you know? Because take a look. 11 is mentioned twice in Deuteronomy. In the beginning of Deuteronomy, in the beginning of the Vara. First it says, Achadasa Yoimei Chorev. 11 days from Chorev. Derech Har Seir, through Mount Seir. Guys, and whoever else is listening. Ladies and gentlemen. The fun hasn't even started yet. It's worth, okay, today's class is worth listening even if it's a little longer, okay? Everybody, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. Promise you, there's no other channel in the world that's going to give you the insights that we're giving you here. This is the real stuff. This is as real as it gets, okay? Everybody else, this is the real story, okay? What happens over here? So there is a very important word over here, which I said very quickly, which is the secret of everything we're talking about. 11-day journey through the mountain of Seir. Okay, don't start fantasizing about the mountain of Seir or imagining it right now, because that we're going to leave for the end of the class. Okay, we're coming back to this. I want you to remember that there is something about the 11-day journey through the land of Philistine, which would have been an 11-day journey, Gaza, right over there. That journey, which is 11 days, somehow makes its way through the Mount of Seir. Okay, this is just a teaser to keep you interested over here, okay? Through the mountain of Seir. Who's Seir? Who's Seir? Seir is Edom. That's Esav. Okay? So let's leave that spin for a little later. At Kadesh Barnea, until Kadesh Barnea. Then what does it say? Vayhi barabaim shana. It was an 11 days. Suddenly we find ourselves 40 years later. And Moshe is now suddenly sitting with the Jewish people 40 years later. Vayhi barabaim shana. It was in the 40th year. What are the next words? Ba'ashte asar chaydesh, in the 11th month. So earlier we spoke about the 11th journey, and now we're back to number 11, but now it's the 11th month. But what you're seeing over here is that when we ended the 40 years, who do we meet? We meet number 11 again. Initially, we were supposed to have this 11-day journey. We left the 11th day. We didn't go that way. Instead, we went around and we're now 40 years later. But who do we encounter at the end of 40 years? Ashtei Aser Chodesh, number 11. Because we never really abandoned the plan A of number 11. We just wanted to get it better. And now we have number 11 again. Simply the verse is saying it, Wendy. Simply, see how you have to have eyes. You have to have eyes. You can learn Torah, you can learn it with a dense mind, or you can learn the Torah with a godly mind. And the Rebbe learns the Torah with a godly mind. And he reveals the godliness of the Torah. So it was at the end of the 40 years. Simply it means, when was it? It was on the 11th month. But why was it on the 11th month that Moshe is talking to the Jewish people? Why? Because Moshe is now at the end of the 40 years and he says, where are we? Where did we land now? We landed in the territory of number 11. We are exactly where we need to be. We are at number 11. The Echad L'Chodesh, on the first day of the month, that's when Moshe starts speaking to the Jewish people. I'm going to make it pause here for 1 second. It says, now listen clearly, it says that Moshe is the first redeemer and Moshe is the last redeemer. Again, Moshe redeemed the Jewish people from Egypt. Moshe is going to be the final redeemer. This the Midrash says. Goel Rishon, Goel Achron. The first redeemer is the last redeemer. We can only be redeemed by one person, and that's Moses. Hey, hold it. We need Moshiach. Who's Moshiach? Moshiach is Moshe. Wait. Moshiach is Moshe. Moshiach is a descendant of King David. Moshe lived before King David. He's not even from the same tribe. The answer is Moshe is reincarnated in Moshiach's neshama. Now, does that mean when Moshiach will be alive, we won't have Moshe? Because we know there'll be a resurrection. Moshe will be there. You can be reincarnated in someone and still have a separate being as well. Because souls are like fire. You can take a little bit of fire and put it into someone else, and the fire is still burning on the previous candle. So it's for sure that when there'll be a resurrection, Moshe is going to come back. But a big chunk of Moshe is inside Moshiach. And Moshe and Mashiach will meet and talk. You'll have both Moshes talking to each other. Cool idea, no? But Moshe and Mashiach are the same energy. And Mashiach has Moshe's soul inside of it. Okay? So, based on that, I'll tell you something really neat that occurred to me while I was teaching today in this class. When Moshe gives his last and final testimony to the Jewish people before he says goodbye to them. When Moshe said goodbye to the Jewish people, he said goodbye for 3,500 years, because he's coming back by the resurrection. But he said goodbye for quite a while. He gave them a little speech. And during that speech, he begins to talk about number 11. Achad Asar Yom, that's the beginning of the talk. Ba'ashtei Asar, number 11. Fast forward many years later, I have no question. The Rebbe himself says it again and again and again and again regarding all the Chabad leaders, regarding all the leaders of the Jewish people, and particularly the leader of our generation. The Rebbe keeps on saying that that's the Moshe of the generation. It's the Moshe of the generation. So there's no question to me. What does the Rebbe do? Also, in the last 7 weeks before he says goodbye to us for 33 years, what does he speak about? He spends the 3 weeks talking about number 11. You know why? He's the same Moshe. There is no difference between Moshe Rabbeinu back then and Moshe Rabbeinu now. It's really cool. It's really cool. Anyways, so now let's understand why 40 years. I mentioned 40 years so we should be able to absorb it. Why 40? So here's I'm going to share with you numbers that are discussed in this talk that I'm talking about. Again, this talk that the Rebbe gave 33 years ago, the week of the events that occurred last week, Parshas Beshalach. Number 11 is the main number spoken of. There's other numbers as well. The other number is 40, because the Jewish people spent 40 years in the desert until they went to Israel. So it was a 40, in the end, it ended up being a 40-year journey. But another important number was 42. Why 42? Because remember we said earlier, it was an 11, when we say 11, it wasn't only 11 days. It was 11 campments that they could have gone. If they had gone the short way, they would have done 11 travels, 11 destinations until they got to the land of Israel. Now they went through the desert. How many destinations were there? You would think for 40 years they probably had 300 destinations. If 11 days would have given them 11 days, in 40 years they could have had a few hundred destinations. No. They didn't travel much. Because in one place they were there for 19 years. They didn't wander the entire time. Certain places they were there for an entire year. And one place they were there 19 years. So altogether they traveled 42 encampments. So 40 is the time period. I'm giving you these numbers because they're very important. 40 is the time period. 42 is the amount of journeys they did within that time period. So in that sense, number 11, which is the objective target, because we could have gone to Israel through an 11-day journey, through an 11 encampments. The land of Israel is number 11. Pharaoh that's sending them out is the power of number 11 that's putting them on this 11-day journey. But they are receiving it in what? In 40 years, in 42 travels. Now, I want to translate that a minute to the Rebbe talking to his Hasidim, the Rebbe talking to the Jewish people at the end of the Rebbe's leadership. When I say in the end, I mean not end. I mean in the end of the period that he was physically talking to us until we will see him again, Bezrat Hashem, momentarily. So, the year the Rebbe was talking to us was the 42nd year after his father-in-law passed away. So the Rebbe was 42 years. If we can speak about 42 journeys, it was 42 years. And the Rebbe compares those 42 years to the 42 encampments of the Jewish people. Now, it was the 42nd year because his father-in-law passed away in 1950. The Rebbe is talking in 1992. It's 42 years. It was also 40 because the Rebbe in 1990 is when the Rebbe said the time of the redemption has arrived. So from 1950 to 1990 is 40 years. So true, this talk was 2 years later already. The Rebbe was talking to us for 2 years, telling us how we need to start assimilating. Moshiach is already present. We need to focus all of our energies in Moshiach. We need to prepare ourselves. How should we prepare ourselves? So the Rebbe would constantly say that the teachings that my father-in-law and that I've been teaching is already 40 years. So you are like the Jewish people at the end of the 40 years in the desert. And therefore, you have the capabilities to already get it. I've downloaded everything. You have the ability to get it. And what are you getting? What do you need to get? What are we meant to get in the 40 years? What are we meant to get in the 42-pronged journey? What are we meant to get in all this time? Number 11. And number 11 happened already the first day I became Rebbe. I unleashed that godliness of number 11. It's here already. And that's exactly what Moshe is telling his generation at the end of 40 years, at the end of 42 encampments. He's telling them the exact same thing. What is he saying? He's saying it's 40 years already, and you guys are ready to walk into Eretz Yisrael to have number 11. And the truth is, Moshe says, I gave you number 11 already 40 years ago. When? Listen to this. This is mind-blowing. I gave you already number 11. Moshe also says I gave you number 11 when? 40 years ago when we stood at Sinai. How many commandments did God give the Jewish people when we stood at Sinai? 10 commandments. But Moshe is saying, and the Rebbe, this is the way the Rebbe explains, and based on a midrash, I have one more midrash for you, and then we're going to bring this all together. Based on a midrash, there are 10 commandments, but that's the body of the Torah. And then there is, and not just the body. When we say the body of the Torah, we mean the body and the soul that vivifies the body. The 10 powers of of divinity that are imbuing the 10 attributes, which are the inner core of the 10 commandments that God gives. When God is giving the Torah, God is giving us himself. He's giving us his characteristics, his intelligence, his emotions. He's downloading himself to us. He's giving us his body. He's giving us his soul. But higher than God's body and higher than God's soul is God's essence. And that is number 11. That's not the 10 commandments. That's within the 10 commandments. That's the inner core of the 10 commandments. That's the pure divinity of the 10 commandments. That's higher than the 10 commandments. And Moshe is saying to the Jewish people at the end of the 40 years, now that 40 years have gone by, you're ready to pick up number 11. When we stood at Sinai, you were still mainly limited in perceiving only the 10, which are the more external element of what God was giving. But really, in essence, what he's really giving is number 11. Where do we see that? So on that same, this is stunning. See, this is all the Rebbe. This is all the Rebbe. So the Rebbe says, here, I'm going to take you now to another midrashic statement. Where is it? Give me a second here. Give me just a minute. I have to find where this medrash is. Oh, yeah. Oh, Membeis. Yeah, I'm sorry. Midrash Rabbah. This is a different midrash than we said before. Membeis. Here. Ah. So this is a midrash in Perek Membeis, Parsha Membeis. The midrash says, Rabavu Oimar. Rabavu says, same verse, Achad Asar Yom. 11 days, Mechorei from Chorev. B'miyuchit sheba asara chatasem. This is a negative medrash. When I say a negative, means it comes to like criticize the Jewish people, but the Rebbe amazingly ignores the criticism and he just takes what he likes from it. he takes a point that says in the medrash and he ignores it. He actually he doesn't want to. The midrash is taken that God is upset at the Jewish people that they made the golden calf. When they made the golden calf, when Moshe was telling them an 11-day journey, Moshe was rebuking them. What was he rebuking them? That it says 11 days from Chorev. Chorev is Sinai. Moshe is saying, according to the Medrash, 11 days doesn't mean 11. It means Echad Sheba Asar, the one that's in the 10. There's only 10 commandments. There's only 10 commandments. But from the 10, Moses is saying to the Jewish people, from the 10 commandments that God is giving you, you have nothing better to violate right away while you're still standing at Sinai than the first one, the most important one, I am God, your God. You would have stole a little bit. Okay, that would have been bad. But at least it would have not been the commandment. So the Medrash is learning that the word achad asar achad comes from the word echad sheba asar, the one that is the most miyuchad. Miyuchad means the most special from the 10. The unique of the 10. What's the unique of the 10? The unique of the 10 is I am God, your God. That's the one you violated. That's the Midrash. The Rebbe, however, is taking that exact point and saying, well, what does it mean, the one that's in the 10? That is the 11th dimension. Even though there's 10 commandments, but there is the essence of God that's in the 10 commandments. That's the meaning of 11, which means to tell us. We said before that Eretz Yisrael is where number 11 reveals itself in the land of Israel. When the Jewish people are singing, they are visualizing number 11. Paro, when the force that's pushing them out, is from number 11. But what is the main event where number 11 is, where we are coming into a connection? There is a moment of marriage. The moment of marriage is when you get married, you're not marrying the other person's intelligence. You're not marrying the other person's emotions. You're marrying the person. Along with the person is you better learn how to deal with their emotions. You better learn how to deal with their intelligence. You better learn how to have a conversation with the person. But you're not marrying the this or the that, their hands or their feet. You're marrying the person. So that's what the Rebbe is saying. By the giving of the Torah, that's the idea of number 11. By the giving of the Torah, the Anochi, I am God. It's the unspoken commandment that's in the commandment. It's the essence of God. That's number 11. And that was downloaded at Sinai. Okay? But how long did Moshe... So there is a revelation at Sinai of God's very essence. Fine. But we know that when the few hours, I don't know how long the Sinai experience lasted. Let's say it lasted for an hour. I'm not sure how long it was that God was on the mountain talking to us. Then it was over. We all went home. But Moshe didn't go home. Where did Moshe go? He went up to heaven, and how long was he there? For 40 days and 40 nights. 40. Why was Moshe there for 40 days and 40 nights? And then take a look at an interesting thing. The 40 days of Moshe translated, Moshe then comes down from the mountain. Instead of giving us the luchot and taking us to the land of Israel, we end up staying in the desert for 40 years. Same number, 40. These were not accidental numbers. 40 represents a person's ability, a person's vessels, the structure of our psyche, and the ability to take something in and become one with it is related to number 40. You know why? The sages say to us that when you're 40 years old, you have bina, ben arbaim shana. When someone is 40 years old, they have the power of bina. Bina means understanding. Understanding means when you understand something, means it has become fully integrated into your being. What's the age of full maturity of understanding? 40. Moshe spends 40 days in heaven because he needed to absorb the Torah into his human vessels. Torah is divine. God wants to marry us. From God's perspective, he can download the Torah in a nanosecond, and even beyond time. But since we are creatures of time and space, so 40 days for Moshe, 40 years for the Jewish people. We find, halachically, the Talmud tells us an interesting thing. When a person's is when a woman is expecting a baby, and the parents, father or mother, let's say, want the child to be a girl or a boy. Sometimes you have already 6 boys, you just can't wait to have a girl. Sometimes you have 15 girls, you just can't wait to have a boy. Whatever it is. Girls are great. Boys are great. You want to have... So can you pray once the pregnancy? According to the Talmud, you can pray. I mean, notwithstanding if the scientist says that the gender of the child is determined already as soon as the conception happens, guess what? According to Torah, even if it's that way, you can flip it. For the first 40 days, prayer helps. So if you know that your wife or a woman herself knows that she's conceived, she's pregnant, within the first 40 days of conception, she can pray that the gender should be this way and that way, and it will be, if God decides to listen to the prayer, it will be that or maybe whatever. You can make that prayer. But after 40 days, it's considered a wasteful prayer. Because whatever it is, it's not going to change. What do you see from here? That the structure of the vessel, the structure, the shape and form of something, its design is 40 days. So 40 days represents the vessel of the recipient. So here's the idea. Now we're beginning to make sense over here. God says, I can take you through an 11-day journey, and I can take you through the land of the Philistine. The land of the closer way would have been an 11-day journey. In other words, what God is really saying, already as soon as we left Egypt, I can give you Sinai, I can give you number 11, I can give you my essence, and I can just download it into you. And the reason it's taking 11 days is not because it takes 11 days, it takes a split second, but the concept of number 11 is one permeating your 10 powers. But if you're not going to do it through your own 40 days, it's never, ever really going to become yours. Even if it permeates your 10 powers, but it's me permeating your powers, not you absorbing me. See? It's me permeating you, but not you absorbing me. I am imbuing myself onto you, but you're not ready for me. Instead, let's do the 11-day journey, but let's do it in a 40-year journey. So that you can really absorb it. You can really take it in. You can really process it. You can make it yours. That's why he took us for 40 days. We'll never lose it. It will become part of us. 40 days for Moshe, 40 years for the Jewish people. Okay. But in the end, you'll get number 11. In the end, you'll go into the land of Israel. After the 40 years, what does Moshe say? Vahi bar ba'im shana was in the 40th year, ba'ashte asar chodesh, the 11th month. After all the explanations, you have to come back to number 11. Now, I'm just going to say something very interesting, just quickly. The Rebbe says that really the journey to number 11 is the journey of all of Jewish history. In a nutshell, we did it when we went out of Egypt. But the great ultimate revelation of number 11 happens only in the time of Moshiach. So Moshe is playing with it already because we're already touching the seeds of it. It's beginning to happen with Moshe. By the way, Moshe was 10 feet tall. 10 cubits tall. Like the previous Rebbe, number 10. Number 11 is really only Moshiach. The sages also say that Moshe, no person ever went up above 10 cubits from the world. No one went up above 10. No one went higher than the 10 dimensions, 10 sephirot. Even Elijah, even Moshe. That's what the sages say. No one ever was sent. Moshiach will. Moshiach is the one who brings number 11 down. So therefore the Rebbe says like this. Although Moshe Rabbeinu and the Jewish people at the time when we stood at Sinai, God downloaded number 11 already. But primarily that download, what we received, what we connected to, was the 10 commandments. Not the divine essence that's in the 10.
the transcendental essence that's not defined by 10 was not really absorbed even at the end of the 40 years. To a certain degree, yeah, we got it, but we got it as much as it was possible to get it in the early stage of history. But it didn't really manifest. The real revelation of number 11 is in the Torah that Moshiach is going to teach in the time of the redemption. Moshiach is going to unlock number 11. But he's not going to, the Rebbe says these words, he's not going to bring us a new Torah. It's the same Torah that God gave Moshe, but he's going to open up a dimension of that Torah that we never saw before. And that is God's very essence. So in the time of throughout all of Jewish history, when we study Torah, we're probing the 10 dimensions of Torah. We're probing the 10 commandments. And we're learning all the commentary. It's all the commentary is on the commentary of 10. Where does number 11 starts flashing? When the Baal Shem Tov comes and Hasidism comes. And it starts to sparkle and to spangle. Number 11 starts to illuminate. But it's going to really manifest when Mashiach comes. In the new Torah that Mashiach, there's a verse that says, Torah chadasha me'iti teitze. New Torah is going to come to the world when Mashiach comes. From God's very self. But it's not new because we know the Torah was only given to us once. We're never going to have a new Torah. It's new and it's not new. It's new because we always had it, but we didn't experience it. And now we're going to unlock the essence of the Torah through Mashiach. That's when we're going to have the ultimate revelation of number 11. And the Rebbe says that started already. Now, currently, through the leader of number 11 in our generation. That's Moshiach. Now, there's one more powerful secret that's going to take it all to what's going on with Gaza, because I said, what's with Gaza, with Palestine? Okay, so here we go. Listen to this. If the land of Israel is the place where the Holy Temple will stand, and number 11 will be revealed, which means God Almighty himself will be revealed. But the journey to the land of Israel goes through Sinai and goes through the land of the Philistines, which includes Gaza. I want to make something very clear. The Gazans, what they call the Palestinians, they have nothing to do with the initial Philistines who lived there. It's not an ancestral land that once belonged to the Philistines. The reason it's called Palestine, which is Philistines, is because the Romans, when the Romans wanted to eradicate the Jewish connection to the land of Israel, decided to call Jerusalem Palestine. Why did they call it Palestine? On the ancient Egyptians that once were the Philistinians. So it was just to disconnect the Jewish people. And now it became the name of these Philistines. But one thing is interesting. Spiritually, the journey to the revelation of number 11 goes through that territory. Which means that once that territory is resolved and it becomes Jewish land, number 11 is fully going to manifest in the entire world, which means we are all going to be in a state of absolute unity with God. Now you can understand why there's so much tension in Gaza. The word Gaza in Hebrew is from the word Azza. Azza means, Az means firm, strong. That's where the strength of the Ein Sof is related. That's why it's such a difficult place. Do you know that the Jewish people throughout all of history always had problems with that territory? Always. It was never an easy place. I once gave a class on it called something about Gaza years ago. I thought to go back before I give this class to listen to what I said then, try to find the sources that I had then. I don't remember, but the truth is it's good I didn't do it, or else this class would be 6 hours. But one thing we get over here is that Gaza territory is very important. Very important. So what's Donald Trump have to do with this? That's the secret that we said earlier. The 11-day journey goes through Derech Har Seir, through the mountain of Seir. Seir is Edom. Seir is Edom. That's the land. That's where Esau went to live. He went to live in Har Seir in the land of Edom. Edom in today's world is the Christian West, United States of America. Edom is red. It can represent when the red in America is in charge, which are the Republican Party, the red states. And when you have a leader who's red, Donald Trump is pretty red. And I will add to that, Mount Seir is Edom elevated. America is an elevated country. It has a lot of virtue. A lot of virtue. It's a God-conscious country. But here's that interesting. The way the Derech Eretz Plishtim, the land that God did not take them through the land of Plishtim, which is the 11th day journey, which is again the power of this 11 that's kind of coming through. It's like the pipeline, like where number 11 kind of flows through. That's the journey of number 11. We're saying, the Midrash says, that has to do with the 11-day journey that goes through the land of Seir. Now, again, the verse doesn't say that, but the Midrash connects these two verses together, bonds these two verses together. And the Rebbe spends a serious chunk of the talk to explain the relationship to Seir, to Edom. What? So here's the main chunk, or the main secret over here. And I hinted to it earlier. The idea of capturing number 11, and we said before, you need 40 days, and you need to do the 40-year exercise, or 42 journeys, remember, in order to capture it and make it yours, is not a piece of cake. It doesn't just happen because you spend more time absorbing it. Number 11 is not absorbable. You can sit from today till tomorrow and try to capture number 11. You can't absorb it. You can't reach it. It is as elusive is. It's God Almighty Himself. How can finite beings touch the infinite? How can it touch God Himself? It can't. It's impossible. Oh, spend 40 years and you'll get it. You don't get it with 40 years. You don't get it after 4 billion years. You don't get it. It's not like a class that takes 40 years to learn. The only way to reach that level and to connect to number this is to stare evil in the eye and break through the realms of darkness and fix the darkest elements of the world, because God dropped sparks from number 11 into Esau and into the world of evil. That's it. And that's the reason why Esau has 11 chiefs. When the Torah speaks about Esau and his children, it says that Esau, Edom, Ela, Lufe, Edom, these are the chiefs of Edom. How many are they? 11 chiefs of Edom. I was sure the Chiefs would win the Super Bowl because of that. But I didn't go online saying it, and thank God I didn't, because the Eagles won. Okay. So my prophecy didn't work. Sorry. The only one who heard that prophecy was my wife. She was ready to bet on the Chiefs. I said, not yet, I don't know. Because I was talking about the sublimation of the Chiefs. So she said, oh, look at this. And then on the other hand, it says, God says, if you will rise like an eagle, I will throw you down. So I said, oh, look at that. The eagles will fall and the Chiefs will rise. Thank God I didn't come out and prophesy like that, because then you would say, oh, everything else he says is just baloney. He's prophesied. See, God prevented me from saying it. But maybe had I said it, it would have happened. But the Chiefs didn't pay me, so therefore I didn't make that declaration. Anyways, okay. But isn't this amazing? The Rebbe says, now all of this is said the week, 33 years, on the week of Parshas Beshalach. Now let me show it. I'm just going to show you a couple of ideas to this. What does it have to do with number 11 and Esau? What does that mean? You see, for evil to exist, they can't receive energy through number 10 because number 10 is a constructive system where divinity flows in an open manner. So from the mind, from the logic of God, from the system where things make sense, where things work, God is supporting that which is holy. Why would he give life to that which is unholy? Evil is dark, it's ugly. It doesn't have a reason to exist. So from number 10, evil cannot receive its vitality. So God created a roundabout way for how evil can survive. In some crazy, only God could have come up with this such a brilliant move, so to speak. It's from God's transcendence and God's infinity, where he's infinite and therefore everything is meaningless. So the worlds are meaningless, so evil is also meaningless. From there evil can nash, can nibble. See that? They nibble off number 11. The Jewish people don't have access to number 11. We only have access. Holiness can't, because holiness receives from the narrow system, not from the infinite system. Because holiness is already is creating the vessels, and vessels are limited. Constructive vessels are limited. So there's a benefit to the holy because it can connect to God in an open, direct way. But there's a disadvantage, is that it can only conceive what the vessels can hold. And that's number 10, not number 11. But God wants to give to holiness number 11 as well. So what does he do? He forces holiness to confront the dark forces. That's the whole scheme. You understand? That's the whole scheme. He forces that which is holy. He forces the Jewish people to go into the lands of Esau, into Esau's territory, and rectify Esau. And thereby, what they're going to have is suffering, persecution, bloodshed, holocausts, crusaders, inquisitions, who knows what. It's all worth it. For what? To finally get the grand prize of number 11. When Esau himself, who is connected to number 11, comes and hands number 11 to the Jewish people. So it begins to make sense now why Donald Trump is the one who decided that Gaza is going to be, America is going to take possession of Gaza. America has to take possession of Gaza based on this idea. Because the way to get number 11, the way for the revelation of holiness of number 11, passes through the land of Seir. And I'm going to read you so you don't think that I'm making this up. I'm learning this last week, and I'm saying, whoa. How do you know Moshiach is here, the Rebbe said? When you read the newspaper, and you read Torah, and Torah and the newspaper say the same thing. Take a look over here. The Rebbe says, 65. This is footnote 65. Yud Aleph Yom, the 11 days. Hem Yud Aleph Nitzutzes. These are the 11 sparks. Shehem Beklipas Noga. They are embedded in the Klipa. Ki Bekedusha, because in holiness, Eser V'lo Yachad Asar. Holiness is 10, not 11. Aval Beklipa, but in the unholy, Kol HaMoisef Gareya, everything that adds, it ends up Hem Yud Aleph, they are 11. And he brings this from the Sefer Panim Yafes, a friend of the Alter Rebbe, Reb Pinchas Horowitz, Baal HaFlot, and then the Tzemach Tzedek goes on to speak about this power. So the access to number 11 can only come when, so think about this. So let's see how it plays out for the Jewish people. The 40 years when the Jewish people were in the desert were not just 40 years of sitting and contemplating what Moshe was teaching. 40 years in the desert, they probably sat all day long meditating on holiness. They sat next to Moshe, their teacher, and they were drinking from the fountainhead of wisdom, from divine knowledge. For that, God didn't have to keep him in the desert. God could have brought them to a nice yeshiva. And God could have kept Moshe, brought him to, if you don't want to let Moshe into Israel, put him into a nice place. And an oasis, quiet, nice place. Instead, he's taking them in a desert. Why? Because the desert is a place, as God himself describes it in the Torah, Moshe describes it, Moshe is speaking the word of God, as a place of Nachash, Sarah, V'akrav, snakes, serpents, and scorpions. The desert is a place not inhabitable by people because it's the headquarters of the unholy. All the dark, demonic, satanic forces hang out in the desert, spiritual. And they empower the demonic forces that are in all the different countries. Their headquarters is in the desert. When the Jewish people traveled through the desert for 40 years, they were subduing the powers of unholiness. That's why it says when they traveled, Moshe would say, "Rise, God, and your enemies shall scatter." They were subduing darkness. And in Kabbalah and mysticism it says, and Chassidus discusses it, that the 40-year journey through the desert was an empowerment for the 2,000-year exile. Well, Jews were going to be in the diaspora, and we're going to go country to country, including through all the European countries, all the way to America. Studying Torah, doing mitzvot, and through doing mitzvot and doing good things, destroying the forces of darkness. Culminating in Election Day, November 4th, 2024. 5785. When the forces of evil were dealt their final blow, and they're never going to recover again. CNN, no chance. You're done. That whole clan of clowns, Omar, whatever her name, the other one over there is AOC, Pelosi, this whole forces, all these people that were perpetuating all this darkness, they're done. They're bankrupt. And as we said earlier, all the garbage is coming out. It stinks. And every day the stench is going to become worse and worse because we're going to see all the fraud, all the hiding, all this. It's so funny these days because they're all sitting and protesting. What is he doing? He's just basically showing spent money, that he's just showing what we spent it on. Who wants to vote that we should continue spending on it? Most people are saying, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Why are we spending? Why are we giving millions of dollars to fund college for Al-Qaeda terrorists? They found money that was given to it. I mean, this is insane. So every day and they're screaming, what is Doge doing? They're not doing anything. They're putting it out there. Should we not fund it? You think we should fund it? What does most of the country think? It's like let's understand something. This has to do with the 2,000 years of purification, which now we're watching the final results of it, that the good separated from the evil. The evil is being laid out. It's being hung to dry. It's being exposed for what it is. It's despicable. It's ugly. And everybody's looking. And again, you just watch the tip of the iceberg. What's going to come out now, I'm telling you, is going to be unbelievable. That's why they're so scared. That's why they're trying to shut him out from the CAA. They're trying to cut him out from the FBI. But all of it is coming out because it's all the purification we've done. And at the same time, we've taken out the good potential. And the good potential is someone who now says we got to bring faith back into our countries. We have to bring God back into our communities. And you know what? He came up with a brilliant idea that Gaza should become the French Riviera. We should build it up. And where is it really going? It's going to the Jewish people. So what's going to happen is this is my again, I hope Moshiach comes today before I even finish this class in a revealed way. It's not far-fetched from my mind that Donald Trump will really build that place up and hand the Jewish people, and not just for the Jewish people, for the entire world, the most gorgeous places of hotels and things. What do you think all the people are going to come when they're going to come to Israel during the time of Moshiach? And you're going to need so many hotel rooms for all the people that are going to come from Jerusalem. It's going to be beautiful next to the ocean. It's going to be magnificent. The Gazans that are living over there, they need to go somewhere else. And they need to live happily ever after. This is the story. And the Rebbe goes on and on to explain how the fixing, the access, the key to accessing number 11 has to come through the fixing of Esav. Where do we find it? He shows you through, and I'm telling you, whatever I mentioned to you now is maybe 15% of the talk. It's so rich, this talk. It's unbelievable. But the Rebbe goes on to explain how one of the main events that happened was that in Parshas Beshalach is that the Jewish people wage war against Amalek. Now, the Amalekites, they are descendants of Esau. So the sages tell us an interesting thing. He wants to prove to us that through the rectification of darkness, we access number 11, which means God's very essence. So the sages tell us that God made a promise in the end of last week's Torah portion, the end of Beshalach. Ki yad al keska, God places his hand on his throne. Ki yad al keska, God places his hand on his throne, and he makes a promise that his name will not be complete until the Amalek is erased from the world. His throne will not be complete, and his name will not be complete. What's God's name? Yud K Vav K. But in the Torah, that's a tetragrammaton. In the Torah, in this story, it mentions only the first two letters of God's name, Yud K. Yad al K. The Vav and the Hey are missing. When Amalek is destroyed, that's when the Vav and the Hey is going to come back. So first of all, the Rebbe gets very gentle in this talk. He says, do we have to destroy Amalek? Yeah, certain parts of Amalek need to be destroyed, but other parts of Amalek can actually be rectified. Like we see the sages tell us that Haman had grandchildren who studied Torah. They converted and they studied Torah. That means there's certain parts of even the dark side of Esav that could be fixed. That's why you need the Rebbe. No one, everyone else. The Rebbe is like, nothing should be destroyed that doesn't have to be destroyed. Whatever is real evil needs to be destroyed, but whatever you can still redeem needs to be redeemed. So, what happens? When Amalek is both destroyed and redeemed, whatever could be redeemed of it, then God's name is complete. How is God's name complete? Vav and Hey is added to God's name. The Vav and the Hey. How much is a Vav and a Hey? Vav is 6 and Hey is 5. 6 and 5, 11. So the Rebbe says, you see, that the revelation of number 11 comes through the fixing of Amalek. And then the Rebbe continues, the same thing is with Yisro, Jethro. Jethro converted before the giving of the Torah. So the Rebbe says, had Yisro not converted, we couldn't get the Torah. You know why? Because number 11, we don't have the key to God's essence. Only through Yisro, who was a pagan priest, but he was the biggest pagan priest, who served every idol. But after he came and admitted God's truth, he converted and said, I know God is greater. That gave us the key for the giving of the Torah. How do we see that? Listen to this. The sages, this week in the Torah portion, Parshas Yisro, Rashi right away begins that Yisro has 7 names. We find in the Torah, he has many, many names. Why do you have so many names? So each one has a reason for it. So why is he called? He's called Yeser. One name is Yeser, and the other name is Yisro. So Yeser he's called because he added a portion in the Torah. Simply, what is the portion that he added in the Torah? Sheyiter parsha achas b'Torah. He added one portion. Which is the Torah portion he added? Yisro was the one who gave Moshe Rabbeinu the idea to set up a whole judicial system. And that's the parsha that he added in the Torah. The Rebbe, however, says no, based on what it says in Chassidus of his predecessors. When Yisro added parsha achas, the achas that he added, that's number 11. That's the one on top of the 10. Through Yisro, we access the darkness converting to light. We access number 11. through Donald Trump, who's not necessarily the most refined person. But when he says that we need to bring God back into schools, this is the same idea. When you have a conversion, that's where you have number 11. That's where you have the highest revelations. My dear friends, we are watching literally the ultimate it's exactly how the Rebbe said it. This is it. So I'm going to leave you with one last footnote that the Rebbe says. In last week's talk, footnote number 87, he says, well, in the end, once we receive number 11, the new Torah of the future, we come to the full and complete redemption. And we get the land of 10 nations, because the land of Israel was really only a land of 7 nations. We get a land of 10 nations. But again, the land of 10 nations, but 10 nations means 10, just like 10 commandments, 10, the world is 10, but in the 10th is the number 11. That's the divinity that imbues, that comes into it. Okay, so we're going to get in the land, we're going to have included in those 3 lands that are going to be added to Israel over what we had in the past. He brings over here in footnote 87 that Abraham was promised 10 lands, but we were only given 7. And 3 of them is going to be an inheritance in the future. What are those 3 lands? Rebbe Midra Rabbah. So he says, look in Midrash. Shloisha umois aser HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. 3 countries, God forbid to the Jewish people. When they go into the land of Israel, God said, these 3 countries, you cannot take their land. And one of them is Eretz Pelishtim, the land of Pelishtim. God did not lead them through the land of Pelishtim. That means a prohibition to take the land of the Philistines. But in the future, meaning in the end of days, which we are living right now, God is going to permit Shlashtan Yisrael, the 3 of them to Israel. Shenemar va'afi b'kasef Pelishtim, va'afu b'kasef Pelishtim yama. We're going to take the kasef, the shoulder of the Philistines, yama, to the west, which is by the sea. And and last week the announcement was made that, but who is giving it to us? It's coming through Seir. It's coming through Esav. Because remember, to get to number 11, to this revelation, to the land of Pelishtim, will be via through Edom. So I'm not in any way worried that Trump is taking the land of Israel for the USA. I believe it's just the method. It's coming to fruition. What was spoken about in the Rebbe's talk 33 years ago, clearly, that the manner in which we get the 11-day journey, which includes going through the land of Philistine, which spiritually means unlocking the power of number 11, which really means unlocking the power of Moshiach, which we know now is the Rebbe is this light, is this revelation. And then let's not forget, remember, we went through the whole Zohar. We went through all the parts of the land of the 3 buildings falling, of the 70-day stars, and the 3 buildings falling, and the leader of the country dying. We discussed, and we already passed through a king will rise, whose spirit is going to rise over everybody, and everybody will fear him. We're watching that happen. We saw the land of Israel shake at the end of 70 days with Syria fall, and Iran and this completely dismantled. We saw the fires come out and burn my neighborhood over here. All of this klipa over here was completely burnt down over here, which seems to be a manifestation of the Zohar. And the last thing the Zohar says, the branch will come forth, which is Mashiach's branch. We're holding there. And suddenly, it's an entire different discussion in the Middle East. Everybody's trying to come now to defend the last chance to defend the Gazans, to defend them. And suddenly he's saying, what are you talking about? I mean, you couldn't make this thing up. This is like unbelievable. Everything has been prophesied. Everything has been stated. And now, I didn't even get to it. What was the newest news? Trump suddenly says, all hostages out. Don't give me a trickle. 2, 3, all of them out by this Saturday. Midnight. Sounds like God saying and again, when I say, is that Hashem is speaking, but through the world these days. So what did God tell Moses then? Midnight, I will go out in Egypt, and all hell will be released on Egypt if they don't let out the Jewish people. And for some weird reason, he himself doesn't know. Why did he say, 12 o'clock, Saturday, 12 o'clock, all hostages out. If not, all hell lets out. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is incredible. Main thing for all of us, let's do a mitzvah. Let's do another mitzvah. Let's be excited. Let's be happy. And let's prepare ourselves as much as we can for the great redemption that's unfolding in front of our eyes. It's good. And as I told you in the beginning of the year, this year's numeric value 85, which is 17 times good. And then I told you in the beginning of the year, it's going to become od yoter tov and od yoter tov and more good and more good and more good. And that's what's happening. More good and more good and more good. May we merit to see the ultimate good and the ultimate revelation of Moshiach Tzidkenu, and let it be today, now,